Coming up next on The Voice of Alabama Politics, DMV closings. Also, the V-Team takes a look at lawless ethics commission. And Speaker Mike Hubbard promises to expose
Okay.
the prosecution. Beware of Mike Hubbard in a trench coat. All this and much, much more coming up next on The V.
The Voice of Alabama Politics, with your host, Bill Britt, and the V-Team with Claire Austin, Susan Britt, Jack Campbell, Baron Coleman, Charlana Spencer, and special reports with Jonathan Barbie. Now, the #1 political show in Alabama, The V.
Welcome to The Voice of Alabama Politics, where we tackle the tough issues so you have the hard facts. I'm your host, Bill Britt, and as always, I'm joined by the V-Team. Welcome all.
Good Sunday morning. It's a little dreary outside, so I thought I'd brighten y'all's morning.
You have. That's a lovely...
I love that color.
I thought it was worth doing that.
It was.
Thanks, Kermit.
We've got the boys versus the girls today.
We do.
Yeah, Jack asked if we were going to duke it out a little bit.
Well, y'all are both scary, so I'm not messing with either one.
I didn't put on my Kermit glasses.
I think it's great. I love it. This, a couple of weeks ago, the Alabama Ethics Commission, without any prompting, issued an opinion that said the practice of a company loaning executives to the state is no longer acceptable. Jack, you and Baron have talked about this on y'all's radio show. What's your take on this?
Well, it's interesting how, from what we can gather, no letter was written to the Ethics Commission asking them for an opinion on this. They just, out of the blue, issued an opinion that you couldn't loan an executive to the state and keep them on your payroll. I think it's very interesting in view of the fact that Seth Hammett has just stepped down as chief of staff to the governor after being on loan from Power South. And interestingly, Rebecca Mason, who still is advising the governor and not on the state payroll, could affect her as well, I think is a clear way to try to embarrass the governor.
Claire, it is the timing is a little suspect, isn't it?
Timing is very suspect. And, you know, they've been loan executives in the governor's office for years, or also it's somebody that works in the governor's office but is being paid at DOT or from a DECA or somewhere like that. So, and for this ethics commission, are they trying to say that they're always going to try to be out front and do things before they're asked to do things? And that's not really their job to do this unless someone has sent them a letter requesting this. And if you kind of go back further, I mean, kind of go back to the charitable worlds. When I worked at United Way of America, and we have a NCSL, which is National Corporate Loan Executives, where if you're at UPS or say Southern Company or any major corporation, those corporations loan them to the local United Ways to help raise corporate money and work within the charitable entities.
Well, you know, there's been questions about was that a good idea? But I think the thing that's really startling to most of us is the timing and the fact that they did it. And there's no statute.
Unsolicited.
No statute.
There's a lot of attorneys in town that's saying there's a problem with this. It's almost like the Ethics Commission is trying to make law when they don't have the authority to do that.
You know, I think it's a good idea, but then they come back and say, well, we're going to prohibit it, but on a case-by-case basis.
They're going to start playing favorites again.
So we're going to handpick who we think we will allow to do it.
I mean, we need to let the legislature look at this and put the parameters on it that need to be put on it before it goes to the Ethics Commission.
I mean, this bunch, they just want to kiss everybody's butt. They just want to guess whose butt it could be, I think. What do you think, Jack?
I don't know. I don't want to go there. But,
well, you know, I mean, my whole thing is with budget cuts across the whole state and having to close DMV and parks, I think you just get rid of the whole Ethics Commission and let the Attorney General's office do his job.
I agree.
We save a lot of money.
If they're just going to rubber stamp everything and say, this is the way you get around the law,
And
Just get out of
handpick
it.
and pay politics. That money could be used to open state parks and DMVs and get rid of it and let the areas do the jobs.
Speaking of DMVs, they've closed 31, but that we've had a backlash of saying it could be racist, it could be this, it could be that. One of the interesting things is that Governor Robert Bentley came out and said, well, if you guys will back my tax plan, I'll reinstate the DMVs. I mean, Susan, how's that working?
Well, to close the DMVs, let's see, we've got, billions of dollars in the budget. This is going to save $100,000 to close these
Just
DMVs.
$100,000.
$100,000.
How much is going to start to reopen them?
$1.2 million. I find that interesting. Does anybody
What
else
is
find
that,
that interesting?
Common Core math?
It must be, because my calculator doesn't go that way. Does yours?
Well, there you go. That's easy enough. It's going $100,000. How much is it? Ethics Commission? Shut it down, open them all back up, and open some parks up.
Well, you get 1.5 million if you shut down the Ethics Commission. You sure would.
There you go.
Okay. Well,
That didn't take Common Core math to get there.
And we all know Bentley did it as a scare tactic.
Right.
No, the sky's falling,
And this one is on him because it was not legislatively done that way.
Absolutely.
Well, I mean,
Both of these are on
this
him.
is
Well,
the-
but there again, it was not. But the legislators passed the budget. They send it over to the governor. He's got to implement it. So he does pick and choose what he wants to slice and dice.
Listen, I mean, he wants more revenue, so he's bringing some pain that people can see. It was interesting though. He had a meeting, and this is sort of off topic, but I can't help but bring it up. He had a meeting, which we'll get into later, with the ALGOP steering committee, at which he had to cut that meeting off to go meet with Jesse Jackson about this.
DMV?
The day
bet
I would
that went
stop
over well.
meeting with the ALGOP to go meet with that fraud Jesse Jackson.
Well, I remember he was in town a couple of weeks ago
Yeah.
because I recall that he met with the Secretary of State, John Merrill.
Yeah, I mean, come on.
Yeah.
We really care what Jesse Jackson thinks down here in Alabama? I don't
Somebody
think so.
got him stirred up. I believe Congressman Sewell probably did that.
Yeah.
Yes, she did, and it was over the black belt closings.
Listen, Terry Sewell's great, but this is craziness. We don't need Jackson down here.
No.
The parks, we've closed 5 parks this week. Jim Ziegler is the man with the plan. I mean, he is on top of everything. How many emails do you get from him a day, Jack?
At least 3.
Press releases.
Literally, at least 3 a day.
He's the Zig
Either
man.
Hope Curry or Jim, they send them out. He's really, part of me wants to laugh and then part of me wants to cry. It's to find out a lot of the stuff that's going on.
Yeah.
But
Well, he's tenacious. He's
Yeah,
smart.
he is.
And
And I think we need that.
Yeah.
I think we do.
I mean,
Right.
he's almost like a watchdog.
Yeah,
He needs to take on the Ethics Commission too,
I mean, he's got his own logo and
Hey,
everything.
Jim, that's a good thing for you to do.
There you go. Now, and listen, he pointed out that the state parks are 85 to 90% self-financed. If they just a few cuts, they could self-finance without any help from the
Right.
state and not have to have closed.
Well, again, I
But
think...
state parks impacts, excuse me,
No,
I'm sorry,
please,
but
go ahead.
the state parks impacts your average Alabama.
Right.
And believe it or not, people go there and utilize these all over the state.
Sure.
And so maybe it's one in Chickasaw, or maybe it's one, somewhere else. But, there may be 60 or 70 people from that region that go there all the time. And that's
Well,
what
yeah.
a lot of families do on the weekends.
Sure. I mean, family reunions and get together and all that. I mean, it's a shame that we couldn't get to a budget that would have done that, but it looks like that's where we're at. But I think this is going to be a political issue. It's a political football that's going to get played out in February when we come back in session. All right, we're going to leave it right there. You've been watching The V, the voice of Alabama politics. Stay tuned. We'll be right back with more news and analysis.
The V is sponsored by Spot On Strategies Group.
Sadly, this happens too often in families with autistic children.
First nightmare, their child wanders off, disappears, and is nowhere to be found.
Where her body was found just a couple hours ago.
An autistic boy wanders away from home and dies.
got to know when to hold up, know when to fold up, know when to walk away, and know when to run. You never count your money.
Welcome back to the voice of Alabama politics. Claire, a lot of chatter. The Supreme Court has been asked to stay the Judge Shashey ruling in the Victoryland case. We don't know how the Attorney General is going to handle this. Looks like it's going to be appealed. They did not appeal the Porch Creek Indians. That's been one of the sticking points for a lot of folks. But I tell you, I've heard from people, person after person, you may have heard this too, that if Victoryland stays closed, the big winners are the Porch Creek Indians.
No question about it. No question. And that's just wrong, and it's unfair. And here we are, back again where we were, 4 years ago?
Yeah.
And remember, in Shashey's ruling, it also says that if you're going to close Milton, you have to close the other ones that are not Indian gaming.
Green Track,
Green Track, all of that has to be closed
right,
as well.
And all these other bingo parlors all across the state.
They aren't going to do that. They aren't going to go close them.
Well, how are they going to manpower? They're everywhere.
I mean, Jack, this thing, Robbie McGee on the Porch Creek Tribe has said, we're happy with the status quo.
Well, we know they are.
Of course they are. Of course they are. They're the only people that are, legally allowed to operate right now. And what Bob Riley did to Milton McGregor, to me, is to
outrageous.
Exactly. Here's a man that opened a multi-$100 million facility in good faith, employed people in one of the most impoverished counties in the state, created jobs, gave people hope, and they come in there like cowboys and Indians and shut them down and, flexing their muscle because it was a personal vendetta.
Right.
And anybody that's looked into this in any way will tell you that's all it was. And there's a lot of suspicion that the Mississippi Indians who helped fund Bob Riley are the ones who were behind it, and he carried out his promise to them to shut any competitor down. And he did it, and it's shameful.
And there's another problem here that people aren't really looking at. If they do shut down Milton, they do shut down Green Track and all of the rest of these, we've got the Indians have a federal issue now, because according to IGRA, Indian gaming regulations, whatever they're playing on the Indian tribal lands has to be legal in the state. And it was a member of the Porch Creek tribe that told me that.
Right, well, it has to be, but sort of right now what it is, and listen, I like a lot of the tribe that does some great things.
Yeah, no, they're great people.
But the thing is, the people of Alabama don't like for the government to pick winners and losers,
right,
especially for the federal government to tell them what they can do. And now I don't go anywhere. They don't go, is Mr. McGregor going to open back up? Is Mr. McGregor going to open back up?
Over the state.
Well, I mean, it's just not fair, and nobody should have a monopoly, okay? And you know what? In any business, I don't care what it is, from A to Z, competition is good.
And anyone that, from the most well-educated people we know to the least educated people we know, say the same thing that you just said. It's not fair.
Well, this argument that, gaming brings corruption. Absolutely, it does. But we already got gaming, Jack.
Talk about corruption. You don't have to go to the gambling industry to find corruption in this state. Go right over here to 11 South and Union Street.
Well, look,
Plenty of
it.
God almighty.
Go look at what the Indian. Now, you go to Atlantic City, somewhere like that, you're going to see prostitution, you're going to see drug deals. Go to Atmore, go to Wetumpka, go to Milton McGregor. There's nowhere for any of that to take place.
Well, as far as we know.
As far as we know. But the Indians, and in fact, the Indians are taking their money and restoring the woods and the Long Needle Pines around that to make it a more beautiful area.
And there are people on the other side who say, well, Del Marsh's bill that allows Milton and a few others to open casinos where racetracks already existed, that helps create a monopoly for those people. Why can't we expand it? Well, I don't think people want a casino in every corner in this state. No. And I think that was a very equitable way to do it and have gambling outside of the Indian casinos. I think
I think you can, I don't know that was the most professional, perfect way to do it, because you already have entities like in Houston County that have brick and mortars already.
And I agree. I would allow Houston County to open.
Yeah, I mean,
they aren't going to shut Houston County down.
I think one of the goals is to keep Las Vegas from coming in here and trying to run the state.
Right.
Let us run our own gaming industries in our state, use it for the profit of our people, and y'all stay in Las Vegas.
And we need a strong gaming commission.
Right, and that needs to be done.
And we need a chief executive officer of the state in the governor's office who will carry out his promise to allow the people to have the right to vote.
Absolutely.
And not stand in the way of that. And I'm really very disappointed in the governor for that.
Speaking of, in another 3 years, that needs to be something. I don't care if it's Republican, Democrat, Independent. That's an issue that needs to be brought up, where they will say they will or won't let people vote on this, because the citizens of this state literally, for at least 8 to 9 to 10 years have been saying they want the opportunity to have that, to be able to vote up and down on the gaming.
I saw a recent poll, not one we did, some other private group did it. It looks like a good poll. Overwhelmingly, Republicans want to vote on gaming. Republicans want to end this issue. Governor, you're a Republican. Let them vote.
Yeah, and the governor had a very good idea in 2010 when I was working with him. He said, I will allow the people, as governor, if it comes to me, I'll say, fine, I'll let the people vote. But if it fails, this issue will not be able to be brought up for another 10 years. Because, it has bogged down sessions time after time. And I thought that was a good plan, but he's silent on it now.
Well, he campaiged on it. I know that he campaigned and told the people of Houston County, if he were elected governor, he would give them that opportunity.
Bill and I personally, he would allow people to vote. And to follow it with what the both of you have said, the second question followed by, are they going to let Milton open? The second question is, well, why don't they let us vote on it? Why don't they whether they want to vote up or down, they don't care. They just want to vote on it.
I want to be fair to McGregor there. According to his attorneys and according to Judge Shashi, he doesn't need a vote to open back up. That constitutional
he's got
amendment,
a local constitutional amendment, right?
Said he could do electronic bingo, even though it doesn't say that was the intent of the voters, and that is it. I think this Judge Shashi thing, the Supreme Court has been very silent. I don't know if that's because they're afraid of the elections coming up, or or
what.
Let
me tell you, for the judicial branch to be worried about an election based on an opinion they issued, that tells you something's wrong with our.
That's scary.
With our court system.
And when the
I don't know that that's it, but
but we do know that's it.
When Cornerstone's explicitly left out Victoryland, that tells you something there. It's not covered under Cornerstone. It's specifically left out on purpose because they already had the constitutional amendment.
Well, I don't know how the court lines up, and I want to stay on this. We only got about 30 seconds or so.
We're going to solve this issue today.
The thing that interests me, though, is that you probably have a court that's 4-3. You may have a court that's 4-3. And, again, I think they need to just do what they did with the Porch Creek. Enough already. Stop it. Just quit.
We don't have enough money to operate the state as it is. Why are we continuing to spend money on this?
What happens if McGregor opens back up? Are they going to go raid it with 3 bicycles and a scooter?
Well, we sure don't have as many state troopers as we used to.
Won't be able to show up. They won't have the gas to get there.
All right, we're going to leave it at that. No gas. All right, you're watching the voice of Alabama politics. We'll be right back. We're out of gas, baby.
McGregor rated by horse and buggy.
I
was thinking about those segues.
That's what I those tall segues.
Sadly, this happens too often in families with autistic children.
First nightmare, their child wanders off, disappears, and is nowhere to be found.
Where her body was found just a couple hours ago.
An autistic boy wanders away from home and dies.
Welcome back to the voice of Alabama politics. Jack, we've had Love American style. Now we've got Law and Order Hubbard style. Hubbard appear, yeah,
I
like
mean,
you're
really.
shocked,
Okay.
right?
This is the same song, verse, second verse, a little bit louder, a little bit worse. I mean, how many times are they going to say we've had prosecutorial misconduct?
Well, it seems to be the thing song of the event. And he was up in Pell City this couple weeks ago, the home of Acting Attorney General Van Davis and the home of
Lance Bell.
And, Susan and I used to be members of that Rotary Club. And I can't imagine them letting a lying cheat like that in that
Y'all's
place.
invitation or your notice must have gotten lost in the mail.
Yeah. Anyway, but Mike was up there saying they're going to expose the prosecution. For what, Jack? What are they going to expose?
I don't know. It's going to be like they're looking in the mirror, because all of the things that were going wrong in the AG's office during this trial or during this leading up to this trial have been leaks that were made to the defense team.
Yeah.
So I don't know what the prosecutorial misconduct. Everybody who's been guilty of that have all been fired.
Yeah.
And the Board of Personnel has said they were okay to be fired.
Yeah, and I think that's a very,
the other guys.
but I also think it's a very valid point for the viewers and readers to know that all of those individuals are now former employees. That's very
That's true.
important.
And plus, Judge Walker has already said, if it didn't happen in that jury room, if it didn't happen directly to that jury, it does not.
Yeah, if it didn't happen in the grand jury, most of those 40 witnesses they've called, they never set foot in the grand jury. They were all outside
There's
the grand
only a
jury.
few of them that were in the grand jury.
This seems like a little twisted sister to me.
Yeah, it is.
It
Well,
does-
this is typical.
They want to say that people knew who was coming in and out of the grand jury. Yeah, you damn right. I rode over there and I could see who was going in and out
Well,
of that place.
some of them, when they leave their representative badge
Hanging on their mirror.
on the mirror,
Pauline,
then
we're-
hard to miss.
Well, it's egregious. The whole thing is outrageous.
Well, here's the thing that it just absolutely kills me is Mark White is such a charlatan, going out publicly saying we want our fair and speedy trial, we want our day in court, and they have at every turn delayed this process, filing these ridiculous motions to delay. You know why? Because Mike Hubbard has to pay Mark White. And if Mike Hubbard isn't holding the gavel, he has no clout, he has no ability to raise money to pay him off.
Remember,
Susan-
it's been a year now.
Yeah.
He was indicted a year ago this month, and we're looking at next March if we get it then.
Susan, didn't somebody tell us, and I don't know if this is true or not, that he was already over $1 million with White?
Yes. Yes. I'm getting in trouble quickly.
And I think he's in the rears.
But, Jack, you made the point that, he needs the gavel to continue to do this. I think his popularity and people and corporations, they're not so interested as they were 6 months ago to continue to give money to his legal defense fund. And he's losing support among legislators from what I can hear nonstop.
Oh, yeah. I mean, when you get a guy like Paul Beckman has said,
Ed Henry.
Ed Henry has really come out against the speaker in
Absolutely,
a big
he
way.
has.
I mean, it's not looking good for him. I don't think he makes it to next session. I mean,
Well, his behavior is very Nixonian, except Richard Nixon at some point had the good sense to leave because his whole power base and support was just eroding. And that's what's happening to Mike. But he is so arrogant and so stubborn, so desperate and so greedy, he won't give up that post. You mark my word.
Well,
He'll have to be forced out. We've said that all along.
Chairwoman Terry Lathan told the governor that this idea of raising taxes was hurting the Republican brand, that his going around the state and talking about raising taxes was hurting the Republican brand. I guarantee you that 23 felonies falling down on the Speaker of the House and the so-called architect of the Republican takeover, that's a bigger disgrace, Terry.
Yeah,
bigger disgrace.
What's ruining the Republican brand is you have a chairman of the party who doesn't have the huevos to come out and say, Mr. Speaker, resign. That's ruining the
Who
brand.
violated the very laws he championed and now calls them unconstitutional.
I think a valid point. I don't know the answer to this, but at the next executive committee, have any of the steering committee or have any of the committee members, has it come from the grassroots up to the chairman to say, hey, Mrs. Chairwoman, you need to come out against him? Has the 178 people on the committee, have they done that? Have they asked the chairperson to do that?
Well,
I think that's
a good point.
That it's a year later, and they're still equivocant. You know, they're just waffling.
I know.
I couldn't get that word out.
And waffling. But I think I mentioned this a week or two ago. But in the states where they've had this, where they've all stepped down, I did some research. I called different government officials at these states, and particularly in North Carolina, South Carolina, Indiana, it is written in their rules that they have to step down if they are.
And there's some courageous people on the steering committee, like David Wheeler and Ed Henry himself. I mean, who has come full circle on the whole Mike Hubbard thing because he's seen the light.
Well, Ed Henry told me the other day, he said, we've got a governor who lied to the people, and we've got a Speaker of the House who's been indicted on 23 felonies. We need to change a leadership.
How are you supposed to navigate this ship?
Yeah, exactly. Well, look.
Muddy waters.
Yeah. One of the things.
Blood in the water, maybe.
We've talked about this before. Mike has said he has a constitutional right to lobby. And Jared Massey was making the media rounds lately. Everybody knows Jared Massey was tied up in the bingo scandal.
Ronnie Gilly and all that.
Ronnie Gilly. And one of the things he was accused of is giving Terry Spicer, using him like a lobbyist.
Right.
Spicer was a Democrat legislator, and Spicer got sent to prison for receiving a thing of value from a lobbyist.
Multiple things of value.
Yeah, but this is the same thing that they've accused Mike of. I wrote a column this week that said, and if Mike is right, Mike should print T-shirts and stuff at Craftmasters saying "Free Terry," right? Because if Mike has a right to, Terry Spicer had a right to do what he did.
Right.
You think he's going to have a T-shirt made up?
Oh, I doubt that. I doubt that at all. But the point is, you're absolutely right. I mean, if you go back and look at this, exactly what happened to Jared Massey, Terry Spicer, Sue Smith. I mean, they were lobbying for their entities or, hiring people. And you go back to the governor, Minda Riley, all of them, and the speaker, and they're doing the exact same thing. So I don't know how. I'm not sure how this prosecutorial misconduct. I'm not sure where Mike's going with this. When these folks were put to jail, and Mike Hubbard's done.
Yeah.
And people of Alabama need to know that this ethics commission is an utter joke and disgrace to cost the taxpayers $1.7 million or whatever their budget is.
Jack?
How you really feel, my friend?
Yeah, you're a little down.
And people need to understand also, if Hubbard had his way and these were declared unconstitutional, these gentlemen and ladies would have been jailed erroneously.
Yeah.
And they would be owed repercussions from the state.
But you don't understand. It only has come to surface because it's all about him.
Exactly.
It didn't
That's
matter
the
when it was
point.
somebody else. It's all
That's the
about
point, Claire.
me, Speaker Hubbard.
And that's it. That's the last word. You've been watching the voice of Alabama politics. You can catch new stories every day at alreporter.com. Like us on Facebook, catch us on YouTube, but always join us on Sunday. Thank you for watching.